In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at multiple Arctic blasts, a few opportunities for nor'easters, and really a couple of other really interesting weather phenomena that's going to be happening here throughout the upcoming pattern. We do have some snowfall happening up there in Minnesota alongside some rainfall, so that's pretty interesting right off the bat. We do have some storminess down here through the south central and into the Four Corner states. Once again, this is already what was happening the last few days, and we're seeing more of it happening today. We do have some thunderstorm activity happening around Florida, not too crazy, obviously. We do have some storminess here in the northeast, as well as, like I mentioned before, Minnesota there. Now, let's start out with the south central, southwestern United States. We do have some isolated activity throughout Arizona here, New Mexico as well. We also see portions of Utah and Colorado, mostly Colorado now. It's kind of moved up into there. Some isolated activity. Now, as we move down to Texas, Oklahoma, and really, for the most part, New Mexico is kind of included in this pocket of precipitation. We do have some scattered about showers that are ranging from light to moderate to even quite heavy here, I would say, near Lubbock there in Texas. That's the second time this week I've had to say that town. We see in southern Texas here more isolated thunderstorm, tropical thunderstorm activity happening down here. As we take a look at Florida, it's the same story. So we have these more tropical thunderstorms happening, especially around the Keys, Miami. These areas are dealing with mostly those tropical type thunderstorms. Now, as we move up towards Minnesota, it's vastly different weather happening up here for northern and central Minnesota, I would say. Here near Virginia, Minnesota, that's a confusing one. We have some snowfall falling there, and this is ranging. We can name a couple other areas. Hibbing as well, Cook. We see some of these areas seeing some snowfall, mostly around Route 53 there, and Route 169 there as it approaches 153, or better yet, 53 there. We see this snow falling. Obviously, as the high temperatures today kind of move in, we should see less and less snowfall, although we are seeing some start to mix in near 169 southward here near Cross Lake. So very interesting stuff there. The rainfall side of things is going to be more light to moderate as well. When you see that snow mix in with the warmer temperatures and everything, it could be quite heavy, but obviously accumulation is not expected. As we move into the northeast, we do have this precipitation up here as well. And this is only going to increase through the day today for the interior northeastern United States. That's the Adirondacks, the White Mountains, the Green Mountains, and these hilly regions here, and mountainous regions for the most part here in northern Maine. We see this pocket of heavier precipitation moving into through Canada, Montreal there, and moving towards the northern United States. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to focus primarily on the upcoming pattern. We're going to talk about that upcoming storminess where nor'easters will be possible. We're going to talk about the total precipitation, total snowfall, where there is a little bit more expected. And we'll even talk about that upcoming temperature pattern where we have two major Arctic blasts expected in the next 10. Now, here we are taking a look at this upcoming precipitation pattern, really for the most part, the storminess. As we approach later on today, we see this expanding here for the Four Corner states and south central United States. The northeast, again, kind of getting a little bit more of that storminess. We see this area up here kind of breaking up here near Minnesota. And then the southeast still dealing with some thunderstorm activity down there as well. As we approach Monday, a couple things happening. We see this storm here, this storm system moving down southward towards the Rockies. So we should see that start to impact those regions. We still have this storminess impacting the south central United States. And then up and down the east coast here from Florida, ranging through the southeast all the way to the northeast here. We have some isolated and scattered showery activity here, again, up and down that east coast. As we approach Tuesday, we see this storm system has moved down a little bit into the northern Rockies. So we see Wyoming, Montana here seeing some snowfall in there. We see this 987 millibar low pressure center, and we see a cold front trying to develop here. A lot of cold air behind this could expand and hit the eastern United States. Spoiler alert, that is what's going to happen actually. We do see some storminess moving out ahead of this, racing to the north. This definitely introduces the possibility of severe weather. We're going to need to watch that pretty closely. When you see this cold air rushing in from the side, this is a pretty classic setup. We see the cold air rushing in from the side, the warm air rushing out ahead of it. This is what creates rotation up in the atmosphere. that eventually it's a horizontal rotation, but it gets pushed down by downdrafts, and that's what would create tornadoes. I'm not saying there's going to be tornadoes, but just for reference, in the springtime when you're expecting really, really good opportunities for tornadoes, unfortunately, that is how it works. The cold air kind of rolling over that warm air that's racing to the north creates the rotation, and then again can get pushed down by a downdraft, and that's what would create a tornado. That's your weather lesson for the day. Wednesday, October 12th, we have our bigger low up here, 995 or 85 there, 996 down here, and really it's just a cold front extending down just like this. We see more and more cold air racing in behind. Again, it's indicative of a cold front. Warm air likely around midweek for the eastern United States is Wednesday, October 12th. Definitely going to be warmer here in the eastern United States, but once this cold front rolls through, and it is a very high precipitation cold front, as you can see, we have plenty of storminess happening along this cold front and even areas south of the cold front here. So this is that pocket that's moving northward ahead of the cold front. And then this pocket here is the actual cold front, and this is definitely a very, very high precipitation cold front. So you're going to notice it. You won't just notice, oh, it's a little bit colder. I guess that cold front came through. Won't be like that. You will know the cold front came through because it will be raining outside and probably quite stormy for multiple hours at least. As we reach Thursday here afternoon, that's when the eastern seaboard will be feeling this cold front that is now stretching well. I mean, this is a very intense cold front. Look at that horseshoeing around the entire United States. It's basically touching Mexico here and pretty darn north into Canada there as well. So this is a far stretching cold front here. And this is allowing cold air to pour in deep, deep, deep south into the eastern United States, well into the Gulf states. We'll talk about that in a minute. Very far below normal temperatures. And again, the storminess is not going to be taken lightly. This is definitely a heavy area of storminess moving through Wednesday into Thursday there, October 12th into the 13th. And this is going to kind of develop a nor'easter here, as you can see. So we start out with this low, the secondary low, because, well, more like a third low. I don't know what you would refer to that as, but a 985 low here, 997 low here. So the lower pressure is going to be your stronger storm here. That's your primary low. The weaker low is going to be your secondary low. It's kind of in second place there as strongest low pressure system. And then this one down here is a 1,006 millibar low pressure center. So this is kind of like the third biggest low here happening in this whole storm system. That kind of shows you just how strong this is. Well, this rapidly moves off the coast, and then it begins to drop in pressure. Anything below 1,000 is going to be relatively a pretty decent storm. So 999 here right off the mid-Atlantic coast, definitely developing into a bit of a nor'easter off the coast. 995 now offshore of New Jersey. I would definitely say that's a nor'easter at this point. It reaches 995 as the lowest low, and it kind of takes a track. I would say like this is kind of what this model is showing for the most part. I think it's a little bit too far east, but regardless, that's pretty much what it shows. And it's this time spent over water between Virginia and New England where it develops pretty strongly right out ahead of that cold air that's moving in. So we see this cold air hanging out, and then it begins to lift off. By the time we're reaching Friday, Saturday, kind of the weekend time frame, that's the 14th, the 15th Saturday. We see briefly warm air surging into the eastern United States. Might get a bit of a warm up there Saturday, Sunday time frame. That's again the 15th, 16th. And then we get our next Arctic blast, and this one looks even more intense. 991 here, a bit of a cold front here, but this Arctic blast looks much more intense than that first one. Actually, not as high of a precipitation cold front, although it is visible. So we have a 986 millibar low pressure center here, stretching a cold front, something like this. So it is visible, but just not quite as intense as that one before it. And this would bring even colder air with it than the one prior to it, actually. We have a surging positive PNA here out west, and this is just allowing for this cold air to really work its way into the eastern United States, just as we've seen for about a month plus. Now, total precipitation through the next 10 days here, we'll be dealing with practically no precipitation there in the whites. Your grays will be 1/10 of an inch or less of precipitation. Your greens will be 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Your blues will be 1/2 an inch to an inch. Your yellows will be 1 inch to 2 inches. Your reds will be 2 to 5 inches. And then your browns will be 5 to 10. We can see quite a bit happening here, I would say, in the eastern half of the United States there. So something like this is where we're seeing a lot of activity. mostly due to that heavier cold front that we see move through, and then the nor'easter here along the coast brings quite a bit of precipitation from North Carolina and Virginia up through the Delmarva, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Long Island there, Rhode Island there as well. We see plenty of that precipitation. Also, for the south central United States, we see a lot of precipitation just hanging out down there for days on end. That's why they see such a large amount as well. Total snowfall here. In your grays, we'll be taking a look at a dusting, if anything, that's happening for the Rockies, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, as well as some lake effect snowfall potentially. We see blues as well in some of these spots, and that's going to be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purples will be 6 to 10. And then your pinks there, which we see some for southern Montana, and then a lot up there for Canada. That is, we're taking a look at 10 to 20 inches of snowfall. Certainly a very, very large amount of snowfall for a lot of these folks for this early in October. Now, your temperature pattern. We're in an Arctic blast right now. We have 10 to 15 degrees below normal here in these greens. Same story down here for the south central United States. Down here, it's mostly due to the precipitation. Their average conditions are sunny, which means it's relatively warm. So when it does get rainy, that brings your average temperature very, very far down. We know when it's rainy, typically it's going to be colder than when it's sunny. Typically. Now, there is obvious exceptions to that, but that is kind of typically how it goes. Now, let's take a look as we approach Monday. We see things warming up to more neutral here in the eastern United States, I would say. Tuesday here, it is warmer than normal for the most part. Very, very close to normal, but warmer than normal, I would say, here in the United States, in the eastern United States. Wednesday, we see warmer temperatures throughout a lot of these regions. The West is just staying warm because we have this really strong positive PNA. As we reach Thursday, look at that. Arctic blast moving in. Arctic blast number 1. Again, this just as a reference, this is that heavy, heavy, heavy precipitation cold front that comes through first. This is Thursday the 13th. Friday the 14th here, we'd probably have the nor'easter offshore by this point. Definitely far below normal temperatures here. About 10 to 15 in the greens, 1 to 10 in the blues there. Basically, we see a lot more greens spread in as we approach Saturday and even later into Sunday here. We see that the warm-up begins. So, again, a really, really quick surge of warm air up the east coast. But this much, much, much more potent Arctic blast is now moving into the eastern United States for Monday. There, look at that, 10 to 15 degrees below normal in the greens. Your blues that are showing up within the greens, especially down there for Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, those are going to be 15 to 25 degrees below normal. And then those magentas in there for Texas is going to be 25 to 35 degrees below normal. So let's just take the average of 30 degrees below normal. If your average temperature was 100, it's not, but if it was, you would be at 70 degrees. If your average temperature was 70 degrees, you'd be at 40 degrees. So, I mean, this is huge departures from what is typical. Certainly worth mentioning. A lot of these areas up here is going to be more about, sitting right around 15 to 20 degrees below normal, which is a far significant departure from normal, I would say. Tuesday here on the 18th, it's the same story. We have these far below normal temperatures just sitting in the eastern and central United States. And they don't look to go anywhere anytime soon. So Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe, that's the 18th to the 19th. Even Monday, so I'd say the 17th, 18th, and 19th, we certainly have an indication here on this model that very, very deep Arctic air is going to work its way into the eastern United States. So each of these Arctic blasts are going to be topping each other. We're in one now. The second one will top this one. And then this third one likely is going to top all of them that have happened thus far. So we're getting colder and colder and colder with these Arctic blasts as we've been in a far below normal temperature pattern for the entirety of the fall so far. Really, it's been an unusual thing. If you look at the recent history, this is very, very crazy stuff. Unlike anything we've seen in the past 10, 15, 20 years for the most part. Maybe there's a couple of exceptions in there, but usually warm falls has been the trend as of recent history. And this has been a big old exception, I would say. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I feel like I rambled on a lot in this video. Be sure to subscribe for more daily uploads as we do upload every single day. So be sure to check in daily. Be sure to subscribe to get those updates every single day. Also, like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next video.